as the only country that has been bombed by nuclear power, we need to have one of those nuclear power plants so that we can show how peaceful it can be used.
It is necessary for us to lower the level of living without electricity. I am for shutting down the nuclear power plants in Japan.
Honestly, I don't understand about the system or nuclear power plants yet. And of course, the media gave the details of nuclear power plants, but it's a little bit difficult to understand everything for me.
It has to be more safe. I hope the government or the country find the safe and effective way to deal with the nuclear power plants.
There may be a shift change in terms of way of producing electricity. Nuclear power is so efficient, and you can hardly put something in place of that.
Fortunately, I was in the US when the earthquake happened. I just got back to Sendai from San Francisco last week. I have been living in Sendai since 1999, so here is my second hometown. I am still trying to contact with all of my friends and people I know, but I haven't heard back from all of them yet. At my work, Tohoku University School of Medicine, we are busy with working for victims who need clinical help and radiation exposure tests. We still have concerns about nuclear plants in Fukushima, but I believe following the government announcements is right. I have a radiological science degree and have been working as a radiological technologist. I feel American media is exaggerating the situation. We have a different protocol from the US and we can't be too much relaxed about it. But we are safe evacuating people within 30 kilometers of them for right now.
More of an expert witness for nuclear weapons, but I do have a sincere interest in the situation in Japan and with nuclear reactors. We have a nuclear reactor here in Missouri. I think this is something that really needs to be talked about, the radiation safety standards in terms of what's going on now in Japan, because the real issue is what happens when these radionuclides get inside living tissue. And there's a big argument about this, and the nuclear industry has set these standards with the ICRP that pretty much minimizes some of these risks. Yet there's a large body of evidence that says no radiation is safe. But I think all this comes into play when you have experts coming on TV and saying, well, there's been no significant risk to human health in Japan. I don't think we have any idea where the accident there is going to progress to at this point. It's a very unstable situation. And I really fear that if the site becomes too radioactive, they won't be able to access it. And in that case, you may have 3 reactor meltdowns, and the fuel ponds that are there may release enormous amounts of radiation, and it may make a large area of northern Japan uninhabitable. In any type of nuclear detonation or fission, there's about 200 radioactive isotopes that are produced, and some of them only have half-lives. They disappear in a matter of seconds, minutes, hours, days, but some are very long-lived, and you may have heard of strontium-90, cesium-137. Those are 29, 30-year half-lives. Plutonium-239 is the one that's almost the most feared. It's 24,000 years, so it lasts forever, and it is probably the most toxic substance that there is. It didn't exist in nature before we started making it. I've read it's 286 million times more poisonous than arsenic. It takes 15 millionths of a gram if you inhale a speck of it to cause lung cancer, and a few thousandths of a gram if you inhale that will kill you in a few days from pulmonary fibrosis. Early on, there must have been, I may have been from the hydrogen explosion, I'm not exactly sure, but reactor 4, the fuel pond lost its water. And so when that happened, there had to have been a zirconium fire, and the rods melted together, and then they have a thing they call criticality. Basically, when you put all that uranium and you melt it in one spot, it starts its own fission reaction. Anyway, there's some pretty good evidence, I believe, that the fuel ponds, at least one of them, has melted. We have 6 nuclear reactors lined up about 2,000 feet apart. When I saw that, I thought, oh my God, because think about it, all it takes is a terrible accident at one of them that scatters enough radioactivity around, then they not only could not get to that one reactor, they may not be able to get to the one next to it. If they can't get to these plants, then that's your worst case scenario. I mean, really what we ought to do is hand out about 15 or 20,000 dosimeters and Geiger counters to people and have them monitoring. I think that would be, and then you might not have a vested interest in somebody maybe jimmying the figures a little bit so they don't. I get offended when I hear some of these reports about high levels were detected. Well, they ought to say what they found too. What element is it? Is it iodine 131? Is it cesium? We're not getting good information. And look how much money's invested in nuclear energy and nuclear power. I mean, it's enormous. It's billions and billions of dollars. It's not just the plants, it's the mining, it's the whole setup. All these things produce radioactivity. Well, as long as you have standards that minimize the dangers of that radiation, you can defend it. You can get the best scientists up and say, you're exaggerating. They're not accurately reporting what's going on. I don't think it does. They'd be better off to just evacuate these areas far out and try to set up as many monitors as they can. Another thing I don't know is why they don't start entombing these reactors in concrete. I read an article, though, that said the radiation levels were so high over the plants that it might be impossible to fly over. You couldn't fly over it even with a lead-shielded helicopter. It would kill the pilot. That's why you're getting radiation. If you look at the weather in Fukushima and watch which way the wind's blowing, every time it's blowing out of the north and blowing south towards Tokyo, then you're going to get radiation there. Aside from the poor people that are exposed to this immediately, there's going to be a big question about, can these zones even be habitable if this stuff keeps up? Can even people live there again? And why not use the wind and the sun? Japan's developed incredible photovoltaic technologies. That's what they ought to be building over there, if you ask me. The heck with nuclear power plants. There's better ways to boil water than with nuclear fission.